Woo! Big time hello face for my fellow tribe of Elder Scrolls fans. With Elder Scrolls 6 way out there in the distance, we have plenty to discuss. I'm pretty well versed when it comes to Elder Scrolls history and lore, and I've been thinking a lot about what Elder Scrolls 6 setting is going to be. Where is it going to take place? What country? What region? Now, going over this many times in my tiny little head, I have a list of 5 places that I could see the next Elder Scrolls game take place in. But I'm not just going to be boring and read you a list of 5 places. I'll tell you why I'd personally love to see each one of these options in the game. I'll give you a list of the pros and the cons, and how likely I think it'll be that we'll see that place in Elder Scrolls 6. Now, away to the news goes. First up on our list, Black Marsh, also known as Argonia. Oh yes, if you haven't heard by now, Argonia has been the main word going around the rumor mill regarding Elder Scrolls 6 for quite a while. Actually, since way back in 2014. Now, this rumor stated that supposedly Bethesda Game Studios teased a very lucky few blessed people with a glimpse at Elder Scrolls 6, and supposedly this glimpse showed that the game took place in Argonia, which is more commonly known as Black Marsh. Now, before you get all crazy, Black Marsh is what it is called now, but way back in the past, before Black Marsh joined the Empire, it was called Argonia. Argonia is the native name for Black Marsh. So don't comment down there and say, it's not Argonia, it's blah, 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 herp derp. Now, do I believe this rumor? No. Why? Well, 2 things. First off, the rumor stated that the game would come out late in 2016. So, yeah, look at the calendar. And next, because Bethesda wouldn't do that. They wouldn't just show a very select few people a tiny glimpse of the next major Elder Scrolls game. What would the point of that be? They would rather make the initial reveal as big as possible, and usually within a year of the game's actual release date, not a few years before. That's stupid. Would I like to see an Elder Scrolls 6 Argonia? Maybe. It would depend on a lot of things, because the world and gameplay would have to be immersive enough to keep me invested in playing in a swamp the entire time. It could add a tense and somewhat scary element to gameplay, sneaking through the swamp at night in chest-high water, wondering if anything is watching you or stalking you out there in the foggy tree line. And I feel this would be a big positive because the dense marsh and swampland could offer a unique experience for an Elder Scrolls game. Just feeling all cramped and in danger from all sides all the time. Oh yeah, fun, anxiety, claustrophobia, anxiety. Anything would be around the next tree line. There would also be a heavy Dark Brotherhood presence in Argonia, since Argonians have close ties with that faction. And we'd have the chance to learn more about the living, sentient trees known as Hists that the Argonians worship. That would be mega interesting because nothing is really known about these Hists. Now, obviously, one of the main negatives would be the swamp could get boring eventually, as Black Marsh doesn't offer a unique varying terrain because it needs to do a better job. There could be some grassland and even a small temperate forest or 2, yay, but for the most part, you're gonna be getting your swamp on. You're gonna be getting way to getting your Crocodile Dundee out there on in the swamp. And Argonia isn't the prettiest place either. Swamps usually aren't. So that is kind of a negative, right? Now, like I said before, I don't think it's going to be likely at all that we'll see this in the next Elder Scrolls game, mostly because the rumors that supposedly existed, I mean, they just seem kind of false. But there is always that small chance because there hasn't been any statement from Bethesda saying that it won't take place in Black Marsh. Tiny chance. Next up is the homeland of the Khajiit, one of my favorite Elder Scrolls races. And that is Elsewhere, where vast sandy deserts and tropical jungles fill the landscape. I'd love to see Elsewhere as the next setting for Elder Scrolls. Not only is it the homeland of my favorite race, but the way the land is described in Elder Scrolls lore makes it sound ancient and mysterious. You'd get to explore dense jungles and rainforests, but you'd also have barrens to explore and deserts full of red sand. So I mean, it's two contrasting areas, and in those deserts are ruins so ancient that some of them are buried almost completely under the sand. Imagine exploring a crazy ancient pyramid. Clearly the region itself is a huge positive. But what could the negatives be? Always those pesky negatives. Get a job, pesky negatives. Well, I think mostly you'd have the jungles and the desert, so if neither of these biomes interest you, then Elsewhere may be a bit boring to you. It would be difficult for Bethesda to make the game seem full of content, especially if most of the map was a desert. Now, other than Elsewhere being mentioned via NPC dialogue in Skyrim and obviously the books, there isn't much to lead towards any notion that Elder Scrolls 6 could take place there. The only likelihood that would lead Bethesda to do so is simply how alluring Elsewhere is in itself. Third, but not certainly a turd, is the Summerset Isles. In case you don't know, this is the home of the Aldmeri Dominion, the villainous High Elves that invaded the mainland of Tamriel and caused the Great War, those pesky little elves. Everything is pesky today. Now, these are the same elves that banned the worshipping of Telos, causing Skyrim to get triggered, and caused that idiot to start screaming in Whiterun.
In royalty, and reshape this land which is mine.
Now, I'd love to see the Summerset Isles in Elder Scrolls 6 because it would be a new biome which we haven't really ever seen in Elder Scrolls game. Tropical islands, vast beaches, dense jungles, rainforests, ancient magical elven cities, probably birds or something, I don't know. Plus, Summerset Isles is plural. That means more than one, meaning there is a main large island which most of the game would take place on, but it is also an archipelago, so you'd have several outlying islands to explore, maybe even your own boat to do boat stuff and boat things. As for the negatives, honestly, I'm not sure. What do you think? I feel the Summerset Isles would be great. You may have a lot more elves than other NPCs though, so if you were racist and hated elves, then you might not be cool with it, and they certainly wouldn't be cool with you. And if you hate jungles, you may not care much for the Summerset Isles either. I suppose the map size has the potential to be smaller as well, due to the archipelago aspect, but if the main island was large enough, it would work out. I mean, all the main island would have to be is as big as Skyrim, and then any little island on the outside would be extra. Yay! Now, as for how likely I think it'll be that we will see the Summerset Isles in Elder Scrolls 6, I say the chances are pretty well that we could see it, because the main storyline kind of revolves around the Aldmeri Dominion, who come from this place. Remember, they caused the Great War, so it would be perfect sense for the next game to take place there, maybe to overthrow the Dominion, those evil oppressors of a magical tropical paradise that I just want to build my home on the beach at. Fourth, and in my opinion the most interesting setting on this list, is Kavir. And unlike the others, Kavir isn't just one region or one country, but another entire continent! Bethesda wouldn't have to give us the entire continent of Kavir though, it could just be one region. It could serve as the entryway and prologue for the future of Elder Scrolls to take place in Kavir. Imagine it. Entire new creatures, countries, enemies, spells, materials, races, things. There are 4 never-before-seen races of Kavir, and I'm sure many of you may not have heard of these guys. There are the snow demons of Kamal, who are said to freeze during the winter and then thaw out during the summer to kill everyone and be mean. There are the serpent men of Tasahi, or some word I can't pronounce. The monkey people of Tangmo, who are supposed to be very intelligent and friendly, except for the ones that are cannibals. And then there are the tiger dragons of Kaputun, who are supposed to be like large tiger versions of the Khajiit. Not much at all is known about Kavir or its races, except most of the races are violent and full of rage, except for the Tang Mo. They're supposed to be highly intelligent, friendly, and honorable monkeys who live in the jungles. Now, with the positives of a completely new continent and all the mystery and wonder that comes with it, we could face some pretty heavy potential negatives. If Bethesda doesn't kill it and do really, really well with the introduction to Kavir, it could dictate all that follows and turn players away from the idea altogether. Stating that because, you know how people are, they'll say that it's not the same races, it's not the same countries or people, so that makes it somehow not a true Elder Scrolls game. And I, for one, do not want to have to deal with those arguments. It already sounds annoying. Now, I'm not sure when Bethesda will allow players to step foot in Kavir, if ever. So honestly, I doubt that Elder Scrolls 6 will take place there. But the exciting thing is that Kavir is always the hidden option for Bethesda, since we have never been there before, so it's always in the background just waiting to jump at people with a knife and take your purse. Oof, Kavir sounds scary. Last, but definitely not the least, is either any combination of 2 or more countries. Or better yet, the entire continent of Tamriel itself. But that's not likely. But while there are a handful of known places in Tamriel that we haven't been to yet, I see it being more likely that we might get a region, 2 regions that we already know. Not only would it give the game much more variety in terms of scenery and culture, but the idea of traversing from one nation or region to another would be really immersive, and it could allow for 2 major plot stories to be happening at once, which could eventually merge depending on which nation to choose or ally with, or something similar kind of like that. The positives are obvious to this, but there are potential negatives. With more nations and regions means a larger map size, which increases the potential for the map to not have enough content and to feel mostly like wasted space, which I hate in RPG games with massive maps. What's the point of a big map if all I get to experience is more trees and grass? Yay! But Bethesda usually doesn't do this. They usually love to try and put as much content and make the map as interesting as possible. You gotta keep in mind though, hardware constraints of people's common PCs or consoles will always play a major factor in determining the large sizes of maps and how much content can be shoved way up in there, Morty. Now, as far as how likely I think it will be that we'll have more than one region or country in Elder Scrolls 6, I think it's entirely plausible and probably possible. I just doubt it'll be more than 2, and I definitely can tell you now it probably won't be all of Tamriel. That just would be crazy to try and do. The game would have... the regions would be tiny, it wouldn't be realistic, I would not like it, a lot of people wouldn't like it. It sounds like a good idea, but it just can't be done with the technology out there right now. Freeze yourself and go to Mass Effect Andromeda, maybe they have games that cool there. Now, what I want to know is what you think of this list. Do you want to see any of these places in the game? What would you like to see? Just tell me what you want to see in Elder Scrolls 6 in general. I am so excited for this game, and I want to talk with all you guys and hear what you have to say. I'll definitely give you guys shout-outs. I'll share some comments, and if your comment is even cool enough, you may even give me an idea for a whole nother video based on your comment. That's cool, or maybe not. I don't know. But don't forget to like, share, subscribe, strubble, wubba dub dub, do all that stuff that YouTubers say at the end of their videos. And good night.